welcome to this week's AGM webinar. Today we are joined by Cathy Donovan Wagner, who will be presenting Building a Rockstar Team. As a former retail store owner, RETAILMavens founder Cathy Donovan Wagner learned how to master numbers to go from near bankruptcy to owning 3 successful multi-million-dollar stores. Cathy now uses her cutting-edge expertise in retail and consumer behavior to help thousands of independent retailers increase sales and improve cash flow. Using her proven sales breakthrough system, she guides retailers to more profit, better sleep, and living a life they love through powerful group and private coaching programs, industry speaking events, and a thriving online community. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn it over to you now.
Oh, thank you so much, Justine and Megan. I really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for being here. We care so much and work so hard to give you all the tools you need to become richer retailers in every sense of the word. And certainly one of the key parts of that is feeling like your team, you and your team are all on the same page and all pulling in the same direction. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So building a rockstar team. The first thing I want to tell you about is that this whole concept of unique ability, because boy, oh boy, I certainly spent a great deal of time trying to improve myself. And one of the greatest things I learned was the importance of just identifying what your unique abilities are and making sure that you're working on whatever that is. And what's fabulous about what we do is that we work with so many different kinds of retailers. And there are some retailers who are complete extroverts, complete introverts, and who love to be in the back of the store and they don't like anything to do in the front of the store. And so that's great. And so then you want to find people that complement you. You want to find extroverts who can be on the floor and who can sell, right? And so that's the reason why I'm bringing this point up first, is the importance of that, knowing that when you've identified the unique abilities that you need for a role, that's so important, because when they have those same unique abilities, and they're going to perform much better in that role. And they will also require less training. However, training well is still such an important piece of creating a rock star team, and most people ignore it, which is why I really love dealing into this I really love teaching this. So the step for creating a system for continuously training, and the best way to do it is at team meetings, actually. How many of you hold team meetings now? I'd love to know. Just type a me in chat. Megan raises her hand. Perfect. There we are. I want to make sure I have my chat here. Elise does. I hope I pronounced your name right there, Elise. Megan. Anyone else hold regular meetings? Justine does also. Yeah, it's never ceases to amaze the people and that all of our coaches, that how often people just try and get the information out to all the people at the same time. But meeting them one-on-one, but team meetings are crucial. So the goal is to have a team meeting for sure once a month. If not, and actually, I'd love to know if you're not doing any team meetings. Tell me why. Tell me what your objection to doing them is in chat there. Is it because your team works all different hours, and so there's not one convenient time? So is it not a convenient time? Have they seemed unproductive before? You could just say unproductive. Have they I'm trying to think of what other reasons that you would not have your meetings. I'd really love to know, because we've dealt with almost all of the reasons, and we've been able to come up with a solution for most everybody. But yeah, I'd love to hear. I know there's quite a few of you on here, and I'd love to hear. Yeah, staff availability, Adam, that is such a big issue. Okay, I'll definitely deal with that. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, in fact, and so you don't get full attendance. And it just happened this morning with a client who they have 7 team members. They invited all their team members for a team meeting last week, and they all came last week. And then they had to do a follow-up this week because they didn't get through everything. And like 2 of the team members didn't show up and didn't even say why they weren't there. A couple other people had conflicts, and that's fine. It wasn't set up ahead of time. Different schedule info is passed by our team member onto the afternoon team. I'm not understanding that, Joe. Could you give me a little bit more information about that? I'd really appreciate it. And you guys, I really appreciate your willingness to share about this because it's going to help everybody that's also watching the replay. So I'd love to hear what other reasons it is that you don't have specific meetings because, like I said, in a perfect world, you're going to for sure do it once a month, and you're going to always include a specific sales skill that you want them to learn or improve. And I'm going to share about how to execute a successful team meeting in just a second here. Ultimately, the goal is honestly to try and I tell you that our most successful clients meet with their team twice a month, twice like every other week, or even every week to say. The beauty of more of meetings that are more often is that they can be shorter because you've covered so much already. And it's also really important to have good communication. So I'm also going to make sure I talk to you about communications because that didn't occur to me until just now. That would be an important thing to cover too. All righty. So in a perfect world, it would be once a week, but at least a minimum of once a month. The next thing is that to always make sure that you're including a specific sales skill every time, every single time. And what I find is that most people don't do that because you've got a lot of stuff to cover. And so I'm going to share with you how you can do that a little better, but to make sure that you always include a specific sales skill that you can help them with. Joe said, I meant to say that our team has different schedules. Oh, when they're not available. And so your AM team always passes the info for the day onto the PM staff. Okay, that's great. That's great. And I'd love to know if any of you do any sales training at all during your meetings, because I know that when I started doing this in my stores, when I started including time, making that the priority for why we were together, and not just to holler about how something hadn't been done right, which of course has to be shared also. But I really found that had a significant impact on the ability of my team members to sell when I was always training on something specific and short. That really helps a lot. Something like greeting customers, just only that, just greeting customers, something short and little that they can really learn on how to add on. If someone comes up and just picks up a pack of balls or something, what else can you add on with that? And practicing about that. If you'd like some ideas, don't hesitate to ask. I'd be happy to share. Getting customers information at checkout, because do you want to be able to contact them again through the store, through the pro shop? Reaching out to customers on slow days. Are there people do you collect that information? Have someone's really looking at something and seems very interested in a particular set of clubs or some clothing or something? Do you take that information? How can you deal with it? To maybe they're looking at something, they seem very interested, but then another one of their friends comes in and then they're off to play. Do you have a way of contacting them, of talking to them, asking them if they'd like to be contacted again? So that's what I'm talking about, these little specific interactions that you can have with customers and ways that you can ways that you can serve those customers better. That's what it is. That's what it is. Also, you can also train them through events you have in the store. What I have found is that when you do events like around a specific vendor or something, that the beauty of that is that if you have someone come in that if you have a salesperson come in, that's because you're highlighting this particular vendor for whatever reason you're doing an event like that. The beauty of that is it tends to have residual sales going forward. So you tend to have, because your team members are all learning more about it too. Actually, that's also a spectacular way of training through events. What was the last thing I was going to share, which is that creating a library of training resources. So the beauty of life is to be able to rinse and repeat things, right? So often we don't intentionally set things up that way. And so we're having to create training resources all the time. It's so powerful being able to just start a little YouTube channel where you can just put all your training videos. So the next time you're training a new team member, just do it all on your phone. You can actually transcribe that very easily through a bunch of different AI note taker things. And through Loom videos, for example, if you are doing a screen capture recording to say, and so that then you'll have the video of the training as well as the transcript of it, the written, because some people learn better that way. And then you can train the next person with that information, so then that saves you time. So that's why I really want you to think about, when you're in the middle of training somebody something, a way of making sure that you can create this library that you can show them that they can easily use all the time. That's why you want to make sure that you're documenting it in some way. You can also ask the person that you're training to take notes and task them to type it out. That's actually fabulous because then it makes them own that information already more. I also, when I first was putting all this together, I would have my team and my current team members have them write out their responsibilities and instructions for each team member. Or I'd give them, hey, can you please write up what the opening procedure should be for us, the opening checklist. And then of course you need to review it. But then you can have another team member review it too, so that they're all owning this together. It's not as if you have to create an entire training manual at this point. It's not, because so often that paralyzes people. You've got a million things to do, I understand. But if you're intentional about documenting it as you're doing it, you'll be building that training library for the future, for future hires automatically. So that's the beauty of it. The other thing to remember is that we learn when we teach, right? So we all know that that your team is going to be so much more efficient at selling when they know, understand, and love the products that they're selling, right? So what else? What's an information-rich product in your pro shop? Obviously, like clubs or shoes. And so what I really encourage you to do is to make it part of your weekly training, to train one team member on a product, choose a different team member every week and have them, and then you play this thing called pass it on, where so I would train, let's say Justine on this shoe that came in, and talking to her about what the features, what the advantages and what the benefits are of it. Not just the features of it, not just saying it does this and this, but why that matters to the player, to the customer, right? And so I would teach that to Justine, and then when Megan comes in, then she would teach it to Megan. She passes it on. So you have what we call a training tree with all your team members, so that the person you train knows who they trained, who they then get to pass that information on to, and then so on and so forth. This habit makes them a better team member and a better salesperson without taking up all your free time, because you're only training one person at a time, or you're training everybody at a time, and people aren't really getting it because you're just talking, right? And when you put this into your weekly routine, then it happens consistently and without any real effort when you make it a specific intention like that. So that's why I find that's really important. So it just moves on. So that's a great way to train people on. Honestly, the reason why I bring this up now is because it's also a great way of training anybody on any of the sales techniques too. That's another great way of doing it. All righty. So let's talk about how to plan out your team meetings. Actually, let me pause for one moment. I want to encourage you guys to ask questions, or don't hesitate to let me know if there's something that doesn't make sense, or if something sounds crazy to you and you don't think of how it'll ever work. Everything that we teach at Retail Mavens is all things that have been scientifically proven to work and provide the most benefit to you for the least amount of work, helping you to work harder, smarter to say, not harder. That's what we do. All right, so let's talk about planning out your team meetings. And this isn't like just writing down the things that, so often you'll end up with a list of things that have annoyed the heck out of you that week. And you're like, I have to talk to people about this. And I cannot handle special orders being done wrong again, or this person didn't clock out right, or whatever. Those are all valid things that should be discussed. But listen, let me go over the 7 most common team meeting mistakes that I've heard of, because we hear every reason why people don't hold consistent team meetings. So these are the top 7 mistakes that we see happen that I don't want you to make, because team meetings aren't meant to be a waste of time. They should be amazing training and an incredible team bonding resource. They really can be. The first biggest mistake that people make is meetings that last longer than an hour. Oh, and listen, I get it, right? You have a hard time getting people together, but I'll tell you that the brain can only absorb what the behind can withstand, right? So the minute people get starting moving around in their chairs, I don't know, we find that there's no way. In fact, we tell you to aim for 45 minutes. We tell you to plan for 45 minutes, because in case questions or whatever come up, but that's a great time period. Keeping meetings short and sweet is crucial. That's so crucial. And talking about the scheduling times, and scheduling issues you can have with team members is that's the beauty of Zoom. You can do a quick half-hour meeting on Zoom like that, and it can be short and sweet and effective, and it makes all the difference in the world. There's no reason why you can't do team meetings on Zoom. And then it's fun to do a little activity at the end to get everybody all connected. A silly thing that we do with our team, we actually all work remote, but for our big meetings, our team meetings, when everybody all comes together, we always tell jokes at the end of it. And it's just a fun, silly thing that you can do to, again, to promote that team bonding, even if everybody isn't in person. All righty. The second biggest mistake that people make is feeding them. I'm telling you, you should not be providing food. This isn't a party. It is a business meeting, right? You want to be polite. So if you're doing it in person, for sure you can offer drinks, offer something to drink, but this is not a party. I want people focused on the content of what we're going to be going over, not on licking their fingers, right? If you feel like you must feed them, then for sure you can do it afterwards. You can do perhaps a little bonding if people want to stay around before, but there's no need to feed them. It's guaranteed to be a waste of everyone's time if you don't have an agenda. You're paying for the team to show up. Yeah, they should all be paid for this time. And as a owner, I would just sometimes, just think, geez, all this money that I'm paying in payroll for nothing. It creates such a powerful, it has such a powerful impact on your business, and on the profit you can get, and the peace of mind you'll get because everybody's on the same pace, on the same page. It's so important to invest money in this. It's one of the best investments of money you can make, for sure. So you're paying them to show up, and so you owe it to them to be as productive as possible. And that only happens from having an agenda. And then you must act like the boss and keep everybody on track, or have someone else. So I tend to lose track of time. And so I have a timekeeper. I would always assign someone to be a timekeeper who I knew could keep me on schedule because I owed it to all of them. Some people will also send their agenda out ahead of time and ask for input actually from people. Is that Justin and Megan? What do you guys do in terms of agendas? Justine, I'm so sorry. Did I mispronounce your name? I apologize.
That's all right. On our team, we do notes ahead of time that the directors contribute to on a weekly basis.
Oh, nice, nice. And how about you, Megan?
We are on the same team, so we do the same thing.
So you do the same thing. All right, okay, that's fair.
So we
That's fair.
meet once a week.
All right. If anyone else would like to share about what you have found works well for you in your team meetings, I'd love to know because we can all learn from each other for sure, for sure. All righty, so you have to have an agenda. Another critical thing, boy, this made such a big difference to me, is a big mistake is not using a parking lot. So what you want to tell your team that you're going to follow the agenda, right? And you want to be proactive. And when you introduce this concept of a parking lot, then what happens is that, let's say someone brings up an issue that's important, but it's not on the agenda, tell them you're going to put them in the parking lot. It becomes a great place, a holding place where you can park ideas that you'll address later. And you've got to write the topic down so that it's not forgotten about. And I tell you, be honest with the person. Look at them in the eye and tell them if it's something specific to them, like they want to know about something like some special order, like what you're teaching about special orders, and they say, oh my gosh, that reminds me, I haven't heard about that special order from Megan that we got. When's that coming in? So write that down and tell them that, yeah, you'll get back to them within 24 hours about that. So they know that their concerns are being addressed. That's the parking lot is a really great way of putting items in a place that is in a holding place that people know is still important. It's also super powerful if emotional things come up, because you know how sometimes team meetings can degenerate into just a whining session. And so the parking lot is a perfect way of just stopping, getting everyone to stop and just say, listen, I really appreciate your input on this. I can tell there's a lot of emotions about this. I'm going to write this down and we'll for sure deal with it next time. Okay. You have my word on that. All righty. Yeah, because in fact, that's the next thing. Oops, no, that's not the next thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. So the one other thing about not using a parking lot is that if you don't use a parking lot, then you're for sure going to go over the allotted time. And when you try to cover too much information, you're really being crazy disrespectful to them because you're running over the time period. It's such a common mistakes. And you'll find that when you run regular team meetings, you'll know exactly how much content is needed to fill an hour, right? But you don't want to go over the time. And I'll tell you from personal experience that it's good to have a couple of extra items, like in case things go run short, but oh my gosh, it so rarely happens that anything is short for sure. Oh, golly. Oh, so Linda says that team meetings are always more productive when an agenda is sent out in advance. She assigns someone to take minutes and put the notes on the agenda we sent, and then minutes are sent to everyone after the meeting. That's fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing that, Linda. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that. All right, another mistake is allowing it to become a whining session. This is what I was talking about before, and really it comes down to just putting your foot down and telling your team that this isn't allowed, that you care about them, you respect their time and attention, and you want to know what their concerns are, and I'm going to put them in the parking lot right over here. The purpose of a team meeting, you just want to make this expectation known to everyone, is to share information and to do skill building that will result in growth. Personal growth as well as sales growth, both things. But it is a firm no whining zone. I believe, in fact, that the whole store should be a no whining zone, the whole pro shop. When my kids used to whine, I can remember, it's just was one of the things that annoyed me so much. I can just remember looking them straight in the eye and saying, I literally can't hear you. And I tell you, I would do that with my team if everyone has had in their life that particular person that just can't hear you say, stop doing that. And we've all been there, but that you have to nip that kind of thing in the bud. The other team mistake is that you ignore the fact that your team are salespeople too, right? As salespeople, your team member are responsible for sales. And without exception, every team meeting has to include time that's dedicated to improving their responsibilities. It's your responsibility as a leader to give them tools to help them do your job better. It's your job to make them successful, right? And one good way of accomplishing this is to ask each team member to perhaps take on one meeting and to role play a common objection that they get from customers. That's a great thing to have people do. It gets everyone involved and addresses the actual situations that they face. And yes, people aren't crazy always about doing role playing for sure, but you just got to get it started. And like anything, once you get it started, it keeps going. It really makes a big difference. It helps people hear how other people solve things, and that can be so helpful. That can be really helpful. Alrighty, 3 team meeting rules. The first one is that you have to make it clear during the hiring process that attendance at team meetings is non-negotiable. And you want to make it easy for them to attend by listing out team meetings for the entire year in advance, or at least 4 months out. You want to reduce any objections for it. Finally, keep it fun. Surprise your team with small gifts or prizes at the meetings, and just keep it until the agenda is complete. But keep them fun. It's such an essential way of sharing information and building selling skills and strengthening bonds. I'd love to hear what else has worked for you. Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing, because I'd love to hear more. All right. Now, another issue that comes up is delegating. Now that we have these training foundations in place to consistently strengthen your team through training and team communication, now it's time to make sure that you're delegating correctly so you're getting the results that you're expecting. Because if you're delegating and the things aren't getting done, you as a leader are ultimately responsible for that. So how do you delegate? No matter how seemingly insignificant the task, if it matters, and if you'll be mad if it's not done correctly, then don't waste time being mad, right? Spend the time making sure that you've been clear from the start. These are the essential components of successful delegation. The first is to be super clear about the outcome that you desire. What is it that you're looking for? And decide if you want to control the process that's used to get there, or are you fine with however they do that? You want to give them an exact process, if that matters to this program, to this particular task or whatever. You've got to write it down specifically and exactly what the process is. What should the finished project look like? This is often the source of the greatest confusion and unhappiness. If this is a task that will need to be delegated often, you can even record yourself as you're doing it, you guys. And then next time someone needs to do it, they'll have the video and the written process to refer to. I'll never forget the time in my store that I had put down on the end of day sheet, take the garbage out. And so, I don't know, it seemed crystal clear to me, but then came in and then somebody had taken the garbage out of the front, right? But then just left it by the door. No, I expect so then I had to change that and say, take the garbage out and put it in the trash in the back. So then that was being done, but then I came in one time and someone hadn't replaced the garbage bag. Are you kidding me? How old are you? I, of course, didn't say that. I just thought it. And so then I added, take the garbage out, put it in the compactor in the back, and replace the garbage bag. Like, you have to, if that's what it requires, that's what it requires. Because, yeah, you have to be super clear. What you think is clear isn't necessary, right? Now, listen, if anyone makes a mistake and doesn't meet your expectations for whatever reason, for sure follow these steps and schedule a time to review the result. Schedule a time and being intentional about it. This also conveys the importance of the task, even if it's something as silly as taking out the garbage, because you want to make sure it's done right. And then what you want to do is you want to ask the team member to describe to you what they think that task involves and what a successful completion looks like. This gives both of you then the chance to make sure that you're understood, because you want to make sure that they're saying all those steps, like about the garbage, for example, about putting it outside in the trash, in the compactor, as well as replacing it, right? Don't assume anything. Don't assume anything. So to recap, express a clear outcome. Explain the exact process of what you're asking, if it's necessary, right? And then set an appointment to review the results, and then use the tell me. So tell me, have them repeat back to you what they're asked and how they'll do it. That's the only way to do this and do this successfully. Now I want to just dig into a couple of ways that we can easily optimize your team. And I want to emphasize the difference between a staff and a team, right? Because if you understand this correctly, it changes everything. If you think differently about people on a team than you do about people who work for you, the thing is that you treat people on a team differently. That's the point. And as such, you've got to remember that if you're on the team with them, there can't be any disrespect, right? It's all about treating everyone with respect. There can't be any talking behind their backs, ever, or talking to others about their performance or lack thereof. You can't say anything to anybody else that you wouldn't say in front of them. We know that. I'm sure that's not news to you, but are you really doing it? Are you really doing it? So the other thing that is important, though, because things will come up that they're not doing correctly, and it's important to hold regular team reviews. I have found that many of our clients will avoid doing it because they're uncomfortable. And I assure you that when you use this process, it becomes such a beneficial interaction for both you and your team members. In fact, we suggest doing it twice a year. Twice a year, a minimum of once a year, but even twice a year, because it provides this time when you're talking to them and you just interact in a whole different way. You just interact in a whole different way. You want to remember that it's not a conversation with your team member where you're telling them that they're good or they're bad. That's not it. A team review is completely objective. And the purpose for it is for everyone to walk away better and stronger. And so when you take that subjectivity out of it, it makes it so much easier to do. Let me share this with you. Again, remembering this is black and white. It's not subjective. You're going to start out with the job description of the person you're reviewing. And listen, if you don't have one, you should create one. But even better than that, I recommend that you have the team member. If you don't have a set job description, have the team member put it together for you and tell you what they think their job description is. That's a fascinating project. It's a fascinating thing to look at. And then you'll have this job description done for the next time you go to hire it. Then the next thing that you do is you ask your team member to rate themselves on each of these duties on that job description on a scale from 1 to 10. And then you do the same. You rate the duties from 1 to 10. And then you get together and you just review and just talk about the discrepancies in your ratings and then agree on an action plan going forward. You guys, it's so fabulous. So it's not, I feel like you just don't blah, blah, blah. No, it's like you're not doing this well, or you are doing this well. It's also fascinating to see how people think of themselves versus how you think of themselves. It has often happened to me where a team member has actually thought they weren't good at something that I thought they were good at. And so it really created a great conversation. I'd love to know, you guys, what is it that you've done before in team for reviews? What kind of process do you use? Please share and let me know, because I'd love to share it with everybody else. So like I said, you agree on an action plan and then a date for the next review. And listen, this is another super thing to do. The last question then, you ask them if there's any other responsibilities your team member would like to try. It has been mind-blowing. We learned that from a client, actually, and it's been mind-blowing how people have said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'd really love to try doing the social media, or I'd really love to try merchandising more. And you're like, I had no idea you were interested in it. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And you would never have found that out or made that connection if you hadn't had that time together through this. All righty. The other thing I want to go through is how to motivate your team. So you know that you have to have your team on board and everyone working together to produce the sales results that you need to do, as well as just to get everything done, right? And so I'm going to tell you precisely what to say, the exact script. So the best thing to do is to gather everybody all together, throw your hands up in the air and start to scream, for goodness sakes, get off your butts, your phones and social media and start doing the work I hired you for. Okay, then this meeting is over. Thank you very much for coming. Have a great day and work with every customer cheerfully. And now that you've got that out of your system, of course, that's not what you do. And of course, it's crossed all of our minds because we can be so frustrated with people. But the fact is, you need their help in reaching a sales goal. And so what do you need? You need a plan, because a plan is all that works. And so a motivational plan includes all sorts of has all these different components, and one of which is games and incentives. And usually a week is about as long as you want to do anything. If it's longer than a week, people lose interest. And so short and sweet is an important element of doing little games and contests and incentives in the shop. It's fun to offer sweet prizes. Like people, it's crazy to see what people will do for a Starbucks gift card or something from the coffee shop at your place. Or it's amazing what people will do for a snack-sized bag of M&Ms or Snickers or Reese's for sure. Other great ideas are like $10 food gift cards to other places or a gift certificate to the store. An hour early or late pass is always fun, where there's a passing, you can come into work an hour later, so you're paying them for an hour that they haven't worked. Or how about offering a VIP parking pass? Is that applicable to you? In one of my stores, there was a far away place to park and there was a close one. So we started doing that. That was really a fun thing to do. Be creative, because there's so much you can do with a small investment that can create such big results, and mix it up all the time. So sometimes do gift certificates to the shop, maybe sometimes do food, sometimes you should make it all different things. It can be helpful to target the biggest revenue weeks of the year and save the biggest prizes, for the largest, most important weeks that represent the largest percentage of business. Another thing that can work great is just to tell people what the goal is for the sales goal for the year, for the week is to say, or for the month, and then offer them an extra $1, $2, whatever per hour if they're paid hourly, if they make that sales goal. It's really fun. The other thing that I mean about mixing it up is about, you can also focus on items per sale if that becomes a good thing for you. I have one client that does 4 for 14. So every time that they do a 4-item sale, the team member gets $14 in a $14 gift certificate to the store, because that was the big number that they were working towards. So that can be a fun way. So that's another thing you can do about mixing things up. So a great way to do it is to explain the goal and the game at a meeting, and then making sure that you're tracking, that you want to track where you are compared to your goals so that everybody knows where the team is. It can be fun to use like a thermometer, or I want to make sure that they have the big picture in mind. Sometimes what I find happens is that you can have just one big sale day, and so then people just assume that, oh, we're well on our way to our goal, but you might not be, right? And so that's why it's important that you keep track when you're doing it with the sales goal, and just make it fun. There for sure will be some naysayers in your group that are going to say, this isn't going to be a great time, this is stupid. Do not let them ruin the party. It is your store. It's your party, and you're the manager of it, if not the owner, and you get to run it the way you want to. And fun is one of the reasons why people come to work, is that they enjoy their job. They enjoy the people that they work with. And that's the purpose of all of this, is to make it enjoyable and make it more fun. Now, listen, that when they don't perform, this is a really important thing to deal with. I shared with you that whole story about the garbage, right? So after all of this stuff, I can remember sharing with them that I can remember saying, okay, I've done everything now. I've covered it all. So when I had walked into the store, I was in such a great mood. And then I saw that the garbage was left by the back. And I was like, oh my goodness, we've covered this with everyone. I don't begin to know. I'm so angry. I just so frustrated by the stupid thing. The fact is that if things aren't being done the way you want them to be done, you have to be willing to take responsibility for your part in it. Remember that when you're pointing a finger at someone else, when I'm saying, why didn't she take that garbage out? You've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself, right? And so let those fingers remind you to go through these 3 steps. I learned this so long ago, I don't even remember it, and it really helps. And be ready and willing to do whatever is necessary to help your team achieve success. Because there's only, like I said, there's only 3 reasons why team members don't perform. Reason number 1, they didn't understand what you wanted. They just don't know what to do. It's your job to set team members up for success, like I said. And so start by, like I shared earlier, clearly writing out what your expectations are and defining them. They can't read your mind. And what seems obvious to you, take out the garbage, is not obvious to everybody. But if it's written down, then there's no compromise. That's really clear. And either they've done the job or they haven't. And if they still haven't, maybe they don't have the skill set to do what you want. Maybe you've asked them, an obvious example is maybe you asked them to put something in Excel and they don't know how to do it. And so that's why you have to write down the how and the when of what the job should be done. You can't be too detailed. You can't be too detailed about it all, right? The third reason, so they don't understand it, they don't have the skill set, don't understand it, they don't have the skill set. The third reason, they don't care what you want. But don't jump to conclusions. For sure, there's an occasional person that feels that way. Act quickly to confront this, okay? Because the thing is that people don't wake up in the morning and think to themselves, oh, I want to make my boss's life miserable today. That's not how they think. As a matter of fact, like to use that example of what happened with the garbage, I asked the woman who closed the night before why it hadn't done. Turns out she had heard some weird noises around the compost or the compactor thing, and the light was out, like the light that's overhead wasn't working. And so she was scared. It's not that she didn't care. That was all there was to it, right? Set your team out for success. Don't jump for number 3, okay? Don't jump for that third reason. It's more likely the first 2. And now, last but not least, if you continue to get bad results, and if things continue to not be done the way you want them to, then you might have to take the next step, right? And so what you need to do is sit down with them and review the outcome with the team member, right? Review your written description and then the outcome, what happened. Have the team member point out what went wrong. Maybe it'll come out in a different way, that how they misunderstood the process or what the result was supposed to be. And if it was an honest mistake, then of course, just give them a second chance. You can both learn from it. But if they don't care, and if it was a deliberate error, then you should write them up. And after your limit of write-ups, whatever that is, then you have to let them go. And really, this rarely happens, but it does sometimes happen. It does sometimes happen. One thing that I have found when things continue to happen, it can be very helpful to use this format, is to ask to talk to them and start out by saying, listen, I'm happy that you're here. I enjoy working with you. If this is all true, assuming this is all true. And then next say, hey, you know what? I really need your help with something. And then you're going to say, I noticed that you are continually not straightening up taking the clothes out of the fitting room and putting them away at the end of the day. I'm just wondering what's causing it because it can't continue. What do you suggest we do? I have found this to just by saying, I need your help with something. It takes so much of not all, but so much of the negative emotion around things away. And so it allows you to then remove it and say, listen, we're a team about this. We're a team. We're trying to figure this out together. What else can we do? So that's what has worked. That works so well. And some days, though, you do just have to fire them. And there's a way to fire. Of course, you're going to want to check to make sure what legally what you're responsible for. And sometimes I know it's easier to tolerate subpar performance rather than having to go through the process of hiring another person. But I want you to consider the cost that you have of keeping that team member. It's costing you sales. Is it costing you time and energy because you have to fix their mistake? Is it causing discord and contention between the team? Remember to hire slow and fire fast. And listen, this is so much easier said than done. So much easier said than done. But once you realize someone isn't contributing to the success of your store, in spite of having all the tools available to them that we've just covered, let them go sooner rather than later. Because usually if a person isn't successful in their job, then the person isn't happy. And so that's why we find that the best way to do it is to just sit down and ask them, are you really happy here? And then be quiet and listen. Wait for the quiet to become slightly uncomfortable. Allow them to open up and talk about it and use tell me more to dig deeper. Usually what happens is that they frankly fire themselves or they quit as a result of this conversation. Now listen, once in a rare while, they will claim that they are happy. And then just say back to them, it just doesn't seem that you are by your actions. Like you keep not emptying out the fitting room, even though we've talked about it so many times, and the garbage isn't taken out correctly, just reviewing those specific issues you have with their performance. And like I said, always refer to the laws about it and everything, the laws of your state or province before you go. But I tell you, this has been it's honestly such a gift to them, because if they're making that many mistakes, they're not happy, right? So it's really a gift to them to help to give them an opportunity to leave. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate your being here, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have about it. Here's where you can find us. We're Retail Mavens everywhere. We have lots of great free resources that are made for independent like you. And yeah, we'd love to. We have a fabulous YouTube channel. We'd love to connect with you there. And if there's anything else I can ever serve you with, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Cathy. This was a wonderful webinar. I do have a question I'll start us out with, Cathy. As our retailers are getting ready to head into the very busy holiday season of November, December, where they're managing busy stores, lots of sales going on, and trying to manage their team as well, are there any specific tips you would give them to best prepare and lead their team to success for the holiday season?
Gosh, that's such a great question, Justine. The one thing I think that I find happens so often is that tensions can run a little high as it gets close to the holidays. And so I think it's even more important than ever before to make sure that you're communicating clearly with everyone, that you're having those team meetings so that everybody's on the same page. Oh, and you know what I forget to mention is that using Slack can be a fabulous communication tool. We've tried so many different things like Facebook groups or emails and stuff, but the beauty of Slack, you guys, is that there's all the different channels in Slack. Justine, do you use that now? Do you guys use that?
Yes, we do internally at the AGM.
Yeah, so that you can have all these different channels of information. So for stores, it's like new arrivals or special orders or items asked for, or like you can have all these separate items. It's such a great tool. And so holiday tips when stuff comes up, so much stuff is happening so fast as it comes up to the holidays. You literally can't communicate enough to people. And then again, remembering to make it fun. Have a day, have a PJ day, have a crazy Christmas sweater day, have a whatever. Keep it fun. People work with you because they like you. That's why, that's the fact. They like the area. And so continue to give them more and more reasons to like what they do with you. Did that help, Justine?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy.
You're
Those are
welcome.
great tips.
Hello there, Adam. Do you have a question?
I do. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
So I work at a university golf course, and all of our employees are college students.
Oh,
So
wow.
one of the
That has
challenges
its own.
that we have is it's a lot of turnover just by the fact that they're graduating. We typically, I would say, a year or two is what we get. So we're
Mhm.
constantly training people in on the basics of job duties, as opposed to being able to really build on their skills, the skills that they've learned here. By the time it seems they learn everything, it's retraining. So how do you juggle the balance of making sure they know the basics with getting some of these things like sales skills and things like that?
Yeah, it's a great point. A good friend of mine owns two, I believe it's two, maybe it's three, two ice cream shops. And so and there it's a big thing, family-owned business that she got. They've been around forever. Same thing. She has mostly teenagers there. And she says, I even have to tell them how to greet people because it's like there's just so much more that you end up having to do. And so how she does it is that she has them do a couple of half-day workshops where they're going over all that information. But then what happens is that she finds that they still don't always retain it all. So at least you've said it, right? And so she finds that the only way it works is to have let's say there's 10 pieces of information that you're carrying, 5 the first half day and 5 the second half day. And then so those 10 items then have to be on a rotating schedule really every week that you're revisiting all those items because they don't retain it all unless they're using it all. It's the intentionality of training and making sure that training is woven into every single thing you do, every single thing. I have found it when I would have, we would always hire backroom help and they'd always be teenagers or college students. And I would often have them come in and spend 15 minutes just learning one particular thing. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, listen, Adam, I totally understand how this is going to take time putting this together. However, honestly, you can use ChatGPT to help you break down so many of these things. And then just 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes they work, this is what they have to go over. This is what they learn. And they're always doing that because there's otherwise none of it is retained. And then once you get past the basic training, that's when you can then add in everything else everything else you do. Yeah, it's not easy, not for the faint of heart. You look like you haven't lost all your hair yet, though. You haven't pulled it all out yet.
Not quite yet, no. That's what the hat's for.
Yeah, gosh. How do you handle it during the summer then? Do you find that they stay around during the summer usually?
That's one of our challenges is the talent pool gets significantly less. We're
Hmm.
lucky that it's the University of Minnesota, so it's one of the biggest universities in the country.
Right.
So we do have that. Our biggest challenge also is that they're looking for a college job, and as a golf course, we get a lot of people who have no experience in golf. So our talent pool is a little bit different, whereas where a lot of golf courses, people are specifically looking to work at a golf course. Here,
Hmm.
they're just looking for a job. So you get
Hmm.
we have had great employees that have no golf skills, but it makes it challenging to have them sell golf balls when, like, we get a call about a lost and found club and, hey, I lost my 3-wood. And they come to us and say, what's a 3-wood? That's the talent pool we're
Right.
dealing with.
Yeah. And I also think that it's critical when you're dealing with any sort of age difference at all, meaning between yourself and your team members, is to make sure that you're asking them what they need. How can I best give you this information? Is it best if I just have a picture, like literally a picture in the back, a laminated picture of all the different golf clubs with names underneath it? Because they'll tell you the best way to learn it. And you can't ever assume. You can't ever assume, ever. And I make that mistake often, I'll be honest with you, Adam. Yeah. Thanks so much for asking that question. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Oh,
No.
thank
How
you.
how do you handle team meetings with your group?
Like I mentioned, we have 40 staff, and when
Oh,
they're in
right.
school, it makes it even that much more difficult when they're here at classes, their number one priority.
course.
And they might have an internship somewhere else. At best, we're third on their priority list. So it
Mhm.
makes it difficult. In the summer, when they may or may not be taking classes, it's a little bit easier.
Mhm.
But those are the times when we typically have one about a month or so into the season.
Mhm.
Because Minnesota, it's very seasonal. So we're just
Right.
wrapping up our season now, and then they all go away until March or April. So
Right.
it's very limited on how many meetings we have. But again, their schedules are so different that we can have a meeting and we're lucky to get 3/4 of them here. But then you're
Yeah.
now relaying
Right.
information, somehow trying to get it to them to, 15 people. And some of them
Right.
work 30 hours a week, some of them are working one shift a week. So it's tough enough
Mhm.
getting them to show up, get here for their shift, let alone then now an additional day of the week, and finding a day and time that works for all of them is nearly
Right.
impossible.
That's true. The one thing that can also be helpful is just the beauty of Zoom is, of course, that you can do recordings of it and then reminding them that they're responsible for that. And so there certainly is a bit of a trust in that, but that is one nice thing about Zoom. But yeah, good luck to you. Thanks so much for asking the question, Adam.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Cathy, for a wonderful webinar. I think this is especially great going into the holiday season. Just a
Mhm.
refresher on your staff and training, managing, all of that, having meetings, a lot of
Mhm.
great information to help our retailers close out their year on a really strong note.
Thank you very much. I'm so grateful. Yeah, if you guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach me. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at future AGM webinars and events. Have a great day. Take care.
Mhm.